Today, we are going to talk about a truth hidden behind Cleopatra's name, a reality that is almost never discussed. This is not a story of romantic love or golden crowns. Although Cleopatra VII entered history primarily through narratives of beauty, romance, and tragic love, her true story is far more about economic survival. She did not inherit a golden empire, but rather a financial system standing on the edge of collapse. Cleopatra should be seen not merely as a charismatic queen, but as the supreme administrator of a declining state operating under the harsh economic pressure of Rome. Cleopatra's real wars were not fought only with armies, but with financial instruments such as credit, heavy tribute payments, and grain trade. The hidden web of debt and monetary policy was the decisive factor shaping Egypt's future. When Cleopatra ascended the throne in 51 BCE, Egypt had already lost its former unshakable power. The glorious era of the great pharaohs was long gone. Although the country still preserved its agricultural strength and fertile lands, political fragility and economic strain had weakened the state. The Ptolemaic dynasty had sought Roman protection to maintain its rule, but this protection came at a heavy cost. In return, Rome demanded absolute obedience, political influence, and enormous financial payments. Cleopatra's father, Ptolemy XII, had taken massive loans from Roman politicians in order to be officially recognized as king, a decision that destabilized Egypt's treasury for years. In reality, these financial obligations were not merely debts. They were political chains that gradually destroyed Egypt's sovereignty. When Cleopatra came to power, she inherited these crushing debts. Although Egypt remained officially independent, economic realities showed that it had already fallen into Rome's sphere of influence. Egypt's greatest economic strength was its grain reserves. Thanks to the predictable flooding of the Nile, Egypt was considered the breadbasket of the Mediterranean world. The Roman Empire was strategically dependent on Egyptian grain to secure food supplies for its vast urban population. This dependency gave Cleopatra a certain degree of leverage, but it also made Egypt indispensable to Roman interests. Rome neither wanted Egypt to collapse nor to be truly free. Cleopatra understood that preserving her rule and the survival of her state required maintaining a delicate balance between Egypt's agricultural resources and Rome's endless demands. The massive grain shipments sent from Egypt to Rome were not free trade, but an economic obligation disguised as diplomacy, a silent method of debt repayment. While this system ensured Rome's internal stability, it often came at the cost of Egypt's own resources being drained. Egypt's economy was so fragile that a single weak Nile flood, internal conflict, or war could push the country into financial catastrophe. Cleopatra ruled a state where even 1 year of crop failure could lead to complete systemic collapse. Her reign began in crisis. Almost immediately, Cleopatra was drawn into a civil war against her brother, Ptolemy XIII. This conflict further devastated Egypt's already fragile economy. Tax collection collapsed, trade routes were disrupted, and military expenses rose rapidly. War required money, and Cleopatra had none. To survive, she needed Roman support, a reality that led her directly to Julius Caesar. The historic meeting between Cleopatra and Caesar was far less a romantic gesture than a carefully calculated political and financial negotiation. Both sides had concrete interests in this alliance. Cleopatra needed Caesar's military power to reclaim her throne, while Caesar sought access to Egypt's wealth and grain supplies to finance his political ambitions and military campaigns. Under this agreement, Cleopatra committed to paying part of Egypt's debts and providing Caesar with the financial resources he needed. As a result, Egypt once again bore the economic cost of Rome's internal power struggles. Caesar's victory restored Cleopatra to the throne, but the price was high. Egypt was now even more tightly bound to Rome's financial system. Cleopatra ruled, but her authority rested on Roman power, and her treasury continued to be drained by Roman expectations. Cleopatra was a highly educated ruler with strong strategic intelligence, fully aware that Egypt could not defeat Rome through direct military confrontation. To protect her state, she pursued survival through political maneuvering and economic reforms rather than warfare. She restructured the tax system, increased control over trade, and stabilized currency circulation. She also used religious symbolism to reduce internal tension and conveyed messages of strong leadership through imagery on coinage. Although these measures temporarily stabilized Egypt, the country's structural dependency on Rome remained a fundamental problem. Because Egypt's economy primarily served Roman interests, Cleopatra's efforts could not prevent the kingdom's collapse, only delay it. Cleopatra's relationships with both Caesar and Mark Antony followed the same strategic logic, ensuring Egypt's security. While Antony offered political protection and influence within Rome, Cleopatra provided silver, grain, and military support to finance Rome's civil wars. These contributions were not driven by loyalty or passion, but by an attempt to buy time for Egypt during a period of Roman internal chaos. However, the rivalry between Antony and Octavian turned Cleopatra into Rome's primary political enemy. Through effective propaganda, Octavian portrayed her as a dangerous foreign figure stealing Roman wealth, successfully diverting attention from Rome's long-standing economic dependence on Egyptian resources. This conflict culminated in defeat at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. This defeat was not only military, but also financial. Egypt's treasury and grain reserves fell into Octavian's hands, and the country's debts were officially absorbed into the expanding Roman Empire. Cleopatra's suicide marked the end of independent Egypt, but it was also an economic act. By taking her own life, she avoided the humiliation of being displayed in Rome as a trophy and denied Octavian his greatest symbol of triumph. This event signified the complete collapse of Egyptian sovereignty. Egypt became a Roman province, reorganized entirely to serve imperial interests. Its grain fed Rome. Its gold filled Roman treasuries, and its economy was fully integrated into the Roman imperial system. The debts that once defined Cleopatra's rule lost their meaning because Egypt no longer existed as an independent financial entity. The romantic image surrounding Cleopatra obscures the true nature of her life. In reality, she ruled during an era where power was measured in money and treasuries. Cleopatra's downfall was not the result of a lack of intelligence or ambition, but of Egypt's economic dependency on Rome, a dependency established long before her birth. For this reason, her story is not merely one of seduction, but the consequence of political and economic dependence. Cleopatra did everything within the limits of her world. She negotiated with giants, used every available resource, and delayed collapse as long as she could. But Egypt was living on borrowed time, and when the debt came due, history closed the account forever. Thank you for watching us. If this topic was interesting to you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications. In the upcoming videos on this channel, we will take a deeper look at history, economics, and the major processes shaping the world. Your opinions are important to us as well. Share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, those who understand the past build the future more correctly.